Hi, I'm Chloe and welcome to my studio. I'm not gonna lie, this is my first YouTube video and it feels a little bit awkward to be talking to the camera, so I'm going to work and talk at the same time. So I am a metalsmith and I started metalsmithing in January of 2023 actually. I started by taking a class, which unfortunately did not end well. The instructor ended up being a little bit of a jerk, so I only took, I think, 3 weeks of the class, which was supposed to be a 12-week class, before I ended up stopping, and I mostly consider myself self-taught now because I really didn't learn very much in the class. He taught us how to saw. But I primarily do hand fabrication for my jewelry, which means that I am starting with a sheet of sterling silver and some wire for the most part, and then a stone, and then I'm just kind of like making a design around that stone and making it into a ring, a necklace, or some earrings. One thing that I actually have realized recently is that I have never ever made a bracelet, which is kind of interesting. So I know I mentioned that I started with hand fabrication and that a lot of my work is hand fabrication, but I recently started diving into wax casting, and that's what I'm doing today on this video. So what I'm doing is actually using a soldering iron that I got off of Amazon to melt the wax, and I am making it into a ring. And then once I am done, I will send it to a caster who will cast it into sterling silver. And I took a class on this back in the beginning of 2024. So I actually got to try the process myself, and it was really fun to try the whole thing from start to finish. I am working with this dendritic agate, and it's teeny tiny, and I've actually made some hand fabricated rings with these little dendritic agates before, and they were a pain in my butt because bezels, to make them that small, are really hard to do. The bezel is the piece that holds the stone in place. And so I still had more, but I didn't want to make any more. Hand fabricated. It's hard to work and talk at the same time. I didn't want to make any more hand fabricated, so I figured why not try casting some and see how it turns out. I set up my own home studio. I think I spent, it's not cheap to get started in metalsmithing. You could do it cheaper than what I did, but I think I spent about $500 on some introductory tools, materials, and supplies, and then I just set up my home studio at a little desk that I had right off my kitchen, which I would not recommend because that is definitely not necessarily the safest, but that is what I had to work with at that time. And I worked there for about a year and a half, and I really just tried and failed so many times. And I watched YouTube videos. I also subscribed to a couple of Instagram subscriptions, like those monthly ones, where people do teaching and you can learn from them. And then also occasionally I would post on Instagram, like on my stories, and just be like, oh, I'm having a hard time with like X, insert problem here. And so many metalsmiths were so generous and kind and just wonderful with their time and would actually respond to me and say like, hey, why don't you try doing it this way? Or like, why don't you try this gauge wire instead? Like that one might be too thin. And everyone was just so kind. I think it's such a nice, like, welcoming community to be in, which I love. And so, yeah, I've just really been learning for the past 2 years. And I would say last year I got a lot more confident in my skills and learned so many things. What I'm doing right here is you actually have to kind of like scrape the melted wax off of the soldering iron, because if it melts into your wax piece, that will cause porosity when you cast the piece. So don't at me for using an X-Acto knife. It's like the easiest way that I've found to get all of this off. So then last year, actually, my husband surprised me. I was away for the weekend and he built me this beautiful, messy studio that you see here. It is in our garage, and our garage had previously been a really dark and dingy place, and it wasn't that fun to be in, to be honest with you. But he added flooring, and he also added the like stuff on the walls, and he painted the ceiling, and it is so much more welcoming, and he helped me put together my workbench and everything, and it's so much more welcoming, and I love this space so much now. The thing that I love about building up wax is how organic the shape is. A lot of my work is kind of like nature inspired, and all of the stones that I use are ethically sourced and cut by other small business lapidary artists. And I love seeing nature scenes in my stones. A lot of the jaspers that I use are picture jaspers, which means that they kind of look like a picture. So sometimes it'll look like a canyon, or other times it'll look like the ocean. And because my work's nature inspired, I love that like organic, kind of like whimsical look. And you can really get that with the melted wax, because the piece will actually come out looking exactly like it does in the wax, which is cool and also crazy, because you'll send it in with like minor imperfections thinking there's no way that can be caught in the wax, and it is. The thing I love most about metalsmithing is that there's always something new to learn. So before I started metalsmithing, I like to call myself a serial hobbyist, which I really still am. Like, I love to try new crafts, new arts, and also just new techniques. And so I think that's why I got kind of bored with other mediums, because I don't like to do the same thing over and over and over again. It makes me bored. And so with metalsmithing, just like learning hand fabrication, and then when I got a little bit, not bored, but like wanted to try something new, then I was able to try wax carving and also the wax buildup. And there are just always new techniques to learn and new things to try and do. Something I'd love to get better at this year is actually setting stones into wax. So far I've only actually set stones into my hand fabricated silver pieces, so I would love to do some work with some prongs and bezels in wax, and then maybe try some other types of settings that are a little fancier too. This neat little tool that I'm building on right now is a form of a ring sizer mandrel. So this is actually a size 8, and then this can pop right off, and you can put all the different sizes that it comes with on there, which I love. And it comes with half sizes too. Okay, so my husband says that I'm really bad at telling stories, and it's true. I am really bad at telling stories. But to get back into a little bit about myself and Solar Wilds, which is my jewelry business. So again, I've been doing this about 2 years, and I've tried a lot of different things. I have done markets. I've done about like 5 or 6 markets now, which I love. I love doing markets and talking to people and like getting to know what customers like, what they'd love to see more of. I have also built my website. I use Shopify, which I love. I used to use Squarespace, and I just didn't have like the shipping options that I needed. It wasn't as like easy to get like different sized packages set up. You had to kind of like trick it. And I have a blog set up on my Shopify, so I usually try and do a blog about once a month, and I'll talk about all different types of things. Sometimes it's like personal life stuff, mostly it's business stuff. Like I'll write about inspiration behind new collections, or I'll write about inspiration behind pieces. I've written about a really bad market experience that I had. I had one market that I did where I had some really, really rude customers. So just like finding the right audience for your markets. So yeah, it's been really fun to just like try a bunch of new things with this business and just like see what works, see what doesn't. I had my first market last year, actually around Christmas time, where I made not a single sale, and that was a bit of a bummer. I think the one thing with business is you just have to try and try again and see what works for you and what doesn't work for you. Something new that I'm trying this month, I'm actually going to have some of my jewelry in a local store near me. I'm located in Philly, and we also spend some time each year in Maine as well. And so this store does like a visiting artist series, and they invite new artists in monthly, which I love, and they're all like local artists within the tri-state area. And I was invited in for February this year, which was super flattering. I was really excited. And so I made a little like Valentine's Day collection, and it's just like something cool and new to try for my business.